How do we know you're not?
Nada.
How do we know you're not biased? So I have a politics that is pretty much rooted in some kind of individualism, right? And I've noticed that people, and this is kind of like merging into our conversation about why people are pushing these things, but yeah, pretty much rooted in individualism and personal freedom. And I have noticed, and I'm sure you've noticed, that the people who are closest to what in America we call progressivism, kind of, or liberalism in American terms, right? The more they are adherents to lockdown culture, right? And the people who are farther from it are the ones who tend to rebel. I mean, it's really a one-to-one correspondence. I mean, the closer you are to the politics of the Democratic Party, essentially, in this country, much more likely you are to wear masks all the time and to shame your neighbors and to insist that we continue the lockdowns indefinitely. And those who tend to be Republicans or libertarians, just the opposite, right? Much more skeptical of it and much more rebellious toward this new regime. What about you? How do we know that so I do have a bias going into this. I have a bias in favor of civil rights and individual liberty, which I admit that makes me extra skeptical of anything that's global collectivist, authoritarianism, which is what, even if you were for these things, you must admit that these are authoritarian policies. In this state, in California, Gavin Newsom, our lovely governor, has just announced with executive edicts, without even telling us which scientists he has consulted, that we're going to lock down now, we're going to lock down again, we're going to lock down further, we're going to extend the lockdown, and now we don't even know when we're going to end. We're back in a very draconian lockdown where we were in March, Ivor. California, you may know, like we are right back to where we were in March. And he's just saying, oh, we're going to probably have to extend this, and the ICUs are full, and da 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 da. And the thing that makes me want to kill myself, frankly, sometimes, is that I see none of my fellow or very few of my Californians even questioning this. And again, it's these people on the streets instead who yell at me for not wearing a mask when there is no science to support that. So how do we know that you're not biased, and what do you make of this clear correspondence between one politics and one's attitude toward the lockdowns?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, but the
Yeah.
question, I'll focus on the question. So I always say to people, direct to camera, and people often know, even I'm a manager of people for decades, so I can really read people, but even the average person knows when someone's looking at them, staring at them, that they're telling the truth. So what I say is I have two primary motivations, and I'm looking at you, the listener, straight in the eye. One of my primary motivations is I have 5 children, and I've always been future focused for the future of the next generation. I don't care about me. I'm going to die. We all die. So I am biased towards the next generation. It's my nature. That's why I have a large family, and I spend a lot of time securing their future. That's my big thing in life. The second thing is, and this is not as common, I've always been fixated with truth and science, with technical facts and truth in physics. I'm not sure why. When I was young, I used to get really angry when people would misrepresent the way things worked because it suited them.
Mm-hmm.
And I got in trouble my first few years as an engineer because I got in big arguments with more senior people who were politically twisting the reason for a problem because it suited them. And somehow the twisting of technical truth offends me at some psychological level, and I never lost it. So they're my two primary drivers, truth and science, and a focus on the overall population health and the future of the next generation. That's what drives me.
Okay.
So, needless to say, when this thing got crazy in April and May and got crazier in June and July with mandatory masks and is getting crazier by the day, it's driving my core beliefs and philosophies, and it's abusing them. It's trampling on them. So that's my answer. I have always been known for the fundamental, crucial thing in finding the technical truth in a complex problem. You must challenge your own hypotheses. So most people nowadays, Professor Karl Popper, who was a philosopher on basically how you get technical facts and truths versus incorrect things in science, he said the same thing. And I didn't know that years ago, but I still believed it. You challenge your own beliefs and hypotheses. You don't try and find evidence to support what you believe.
Mm-hmm.
You strive to find evidence that breaks your hypothesis.
Right.
And in doing that, you rapidly kill bad hypotheses and you get rapidly to the correct one.
Huh.
That's my whole life. That's what I'm doing now too. But guys, I can't find any evidence to break my hypotheses.
Mm-hmm. So in this country, you may know this, maybe not. And this is not an exaggeration, my listeners can back me up on this. If you express any skepticism about the lockdowns and masking, you are labeled a Trump supporter. It's that simple. You were dismissed as a Trump
That,
supporter, and which for me is infuriating because, hello, everyone, I am not a Trump supporter. I think he's a war criminal. I think he's disgusting in terms of policy. He's been especially disgusting in many ways. I wouldn't vote for him if he held a gun to my head. So we are not allowed. We are not allowed because, of course, in this country, being a Trump supporter is anathema in the mainstream media. You are the devil. You are not allowed to ask questions about these things, to express skepticism, without being just thrown into the dustbin as some kind of racist. And we're also called racist, by the way, because, African Americans, they say, are disproportionately affected. Now, that's actually not true. It's poor people and working class people who are disproportionately affected. It just happens that in this country, African Americans are disproportionately poor.